I like this idea. I like the idea of shaming people for their participation in things. I think that is a very healthy thing to do. Now, I know the right doesn't like it because the right feels that it's unconstitutional to shame people. In fact, the right would have you believe that it's unconstitutional and it's an assault on free speech to criticize people. But as you know, the Supreme Court has essentially ruled that money is speech. And let's say I am somebody who is a business owner in, let's say, a place like El Paso. And I'm making a ton of cash off of the Latino community in El Paso. And I go out and I take out an ad that says, God bless President Trump. Let's hope he can succeed in all his endeavors to get rid of all the brown people. Or I just say that publicly. Well, I think you should be called out for that. And it turns out that Joaquin Castro, congressman, what did he do? Buy an ad?
No, he just posted this on Twitter.
He posted it on Twitter. In 2019, these 44 San Antonio donors contributed to the most allowable by federal law in answering the question, who's funding Trump? And he put up a bunch of names and their companies that they represent. And I think the idea was, hey, all you white people, maybe they're not all white. It's conceivable that there's a non-white person there. Highly unlikely. You're going to go and you're going to max out with Donald Trump. Where are you getting that money? You getting it from the community that has now been torn apart by a guy who was inspired by the rhetoric of your and policies and disposition of your president? That's what he's asking. And of course, people absolutely lost it. Here is Don Jr. on Fox and Friends. This is his perspective on this.
And, I've seen what these things do. I see, what's going on with the Joaquin Castro craziness and putting out a list. I mean, that list sort of screams like the Dayton, Ohio shooters list, right? When a radical left-wing politician who's polling at about 0% does this for either attention or a call to action, it's pretty scary. I mean, that was the same thing that the Dayton, Ohio shooter did.
This is a list.
And people should be fed up of this nonsense.
This is a list of 44 people from San Antonio who contributed. The original
to the president.
Castro, the original quote was this. This is from Joaquin Castro. He tweeted this.
He said, sad to see so many San Antonians as 2019 maximum donors to Donald Trump, the owner of blah, 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 the owner of blah, 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 the realtor, etc. Their contributions are fueling a campaign of hate that labels Hispanic immigrants as invaders. So he's not necessarily saying go and do something dangerous to these people.
It's
completely different than that.
Perhaps not to reasonable people, but when the fringe crazies on both sides, and we saw that in the last week, right? You had fringe crazies on all sides. They see that. Man, now you're going after ordinary citizens, people who just are taking part in a political process. Honestly, imagine I did that. Imagine I put a list of Joaquin Castro's donors. Now, our people don't weaponize. Good point. Yeah. Our people don't weaponize the political system, the same way. We don't do the organized boycotts that the left does and these kind of things.
Are you out of your mind? Well, first off, he's lying about all that. Second off, he doesn't realize that Joaquin Castro is not running for president, that Julian Castro is. But more relevantly, and I don't know. I mean, I don't know, frankly, if this is something that I would do if I was a congressperson, just from a political standpoint. I have no problem with someone doing this. This is all public information. You can find it on a website. You can look it up, and all that information is public. When you donate, you know that you're giving that information up. But the difference is that as he describes what would happen if he did it, he's doing it to weaponize it. Castro's doing it to say, like, look, people should stop supporting your businesses, which is very, very American, right? Like boycotts, protests. That's the First Amendment, right?
Well, it also feeds into the point that I made a couple days ago, which is that it's hard to say that the shooter was a fringe crazy when his ideology aligns perfectly with that of many pillars of the community in which he lives.
Yeah. I mean, his actions are fringe, but
Sure.
the things that drove him that's the whole point.
Like the only difference between him and them is that he took a gun and killed people.
Well, the ecological part doesn't fit. I mean, that definitely weirdly
Well, there is
complexifies
definitely an element
that does not reflect the mainstream
within
of
the
his
far right,
community
like-
at all.
what are you talking
His manifesto is a fusion of white nationalist terrorism and hatred and profound environmental concerns, which,
Well, this
you know,
is
to
something
me is another thing that's really just, yeah, exactly. It's going there. I mean, we've been saying particularly, yeah, Brendan, exactly. Like this is another reason why this whole like accept the science frame is problematic, because people will accept the science with their pre-existing, you know, biases in politics.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
this is
that's-
something
that's-
that's been going on for a really long time, actually. Like some of the earlier environmentalists were also big in the eugenics movement.
Right. And when you're talking about scarce resources and you have invaders coming, that becomes a problem. I mean, that's also, he was anti-corporate in it.
Yeah,
sort
precisely.
of in the same way that, like, let's say, a Tucker Carlson was.
Yeah, like the stage is set for some kind of
So-
vaguely social democratic eco-fascism.
But here comes Fox News, and they have to come back and basically pull back a little bit because he just compared Joaquin Castro publishing the publicly available names of Trump donors to the Dayton killers list of people he wanted to kill. And here's Fox and Friends trying to pull him back from that.
Either, in my opinion.
So it was great to see you, Don.
And
seeing
just
you
to
guys.
reiterate, the hit list from the guy from Dayton was a kill list. The Castro list was a list of donors.
Yeah.
Correct, but I think the fact that we're making lists of our political enemies and trying to create that narrative is scary. And again, if someone on our campaign did that,
We're going to get cut off,
it would be
Don.
rough.
Thank you so
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. We are going to get cut off. We're all going to be marched away. Unbelievable. Oh, well, so let's hear from Joaquin Castro, who is trying to explain to Morning Joe the difference between doxing, which is when you reveal private information about people, and providing public information about people. All he's doing is he's drawing attention to the fact and saying, like, look, your donation, you don't get, like, the whole point that we've heard from the right in their entire assault on campaign finance has been sunlight, full disclosure. That's all we need. They've since voted against that, but that's it. Like, people know there's no corruption because people know. Now, again, I have some questions about a congressman, the efficacy of a congressman doing this, but here he goes.
That's right. When you make a political contribution, especially to a federal candidate, that's a public record. And so that graphic lists people's names, and many of them are business owners, so they actually own those companies. These are prominent donors, most of them public figures, or many of them public figures. But their money is being taken and used to fuel these hateful ads. And it has put millions of people in this country in fear.
I mean, he's right. All that campaign money went and was spent on, not all of it, but a portion of it on 2,000 Facebook ads, at least, that talked about an invasion.
Just think of it as a giant Yelp review.
Exactly.
I mean, I thought these guys were all about the transparency. This is a super random poll here, but I believe it was Orrin Hatch, when he ran for president for like 2 seconds in 2000, was like, we don't need campaign finance reform. I have all my donors on my newfangled website. So you can know.
There you go.
All right. Well, now we know. Thank you, Congressman Castro.
Not going to do that again.
The only non-Fidel Castro I'll give props for a long time.